we're back again, this time to talk about telling frames. What is a telling frame? So a telling frame is when you're gathering information about a single topic. So you have one topic. You're not comparing things or contrasting things or trying to tell a story. It's just gathering ideas about a topic. So I'm going to try to give you some very explicit examples of how I think it would be good to use telling frames specifically for DLMs. When using any type of graphic organizer, any kind of brain frame, specifically a telling frame, you really want to design a special activity for using the brain frame. Just having students randomly do graphic organizers without a bigger purpose in mind is not great, because then they're not making the logical and cognitive connections that we want them to be making, and it's not enhancing their knowledge and understanding of the topic. So anytime you assign a brain frame, make sure you have a very clear reason and plan for how the brain frame will function. And that's just kind of a general thing with graphic organizers. Okay, so first I'm going to go through some primary examples. So the first example I pulled from Miro Serrafero book on page 9, and it looks like this. So it's just like, okay, look at the foods. What are some foods that you like? Very general introduction to talking about food. So a really good way for students to activate their prior knowledge, is to have them do a telling frame. So what you could do before they even look at the book. So in your DLM instructions, you would have them do this telling frame before they look at the book pages. You could make a page for them that looks something like this. Write or draw foods you like to eat in your home. And you would obviously, this is a first grade lesson, so you would also want it translated into Nepali. And so then what kids could do is they can write if they know how to spell, but then they could also just draw, right? If you can't tell, that's supposed to be an apple and a banana. So that's the nice thing about telling frames is that you can kind of just surround the topic with words or images for little 1 class students who maybe don't know how to write or spell all the foods that they like to eat. So this is already a great activity because it requires students to think independently. There are no answers, right? And they're recording their own thoughts into this graphic organizer. Already great. So, like I said, you want to have a bigger picture idea of what you're going to do with this information. So now that the students have created their little organizer, you could have them do an assignment like this where they have to write sentences. So maybe throughout this little section on food, you're talking about food, how to talk about food. In the book, we can see these children in the book are talking about food, and we see lots of examples. And so I think the way that I would see this lesson going, a DLM lesson, is step 1, students create this telling frame of foods that they like to eat. Then they look at the book pages and read about the foods and healthy foods and unhealthy foods and all the good things in the textbook. And then kind of a good formative assignment, or summative assignment even, would be to have them write sentences. And I didn't leave very much space because it was just an example, but it could be like, I like momos. I like banana, right? And that would be a great activity for a first grade student, a great DLM activity, because it's connected to the textbook. They've done some engagement with the textbook. They've done some engagement independently with their own connections. And they've done an expressive writing assignment. And so this is going to allow you to see, okay, do they understand the assignment? Did they draw from what they wrote in their telling frame? And are they able to form a sentence, right? So this would be a great activity because it's connected to the book. It has some independent engagement. And at the end, you can assess whether or not they get what you were talking about. Okay. So that's what we just talked about, revisiting the frame. Anytime that you attach value to what the students created, it's going to make it more meaningful. So if you just had them draw pictures of food, that would be a fine activity. But when they have to go back and look at their telling frame that they made in order to write sentences, then it really has some value. It's like, oh, well, let me see. What foods do I like? I already thought of them. I like momos and apples and bananas. And so I can write those in sentences. So by revisiting the frame, that's going to give some gravity, some weight to what they did. Okay. Hopefully that made sense. So accommodations, class 1 students might be more comfortable drawing pictures, and that is absolutely okay. I was thinking another example, might be if you did one about shapes. Oh my gosh, that is not big enough. Shapes would be a great one for drawing because then they could just draw the shapes around in the telling frame. For 1 class students, 1, 2, 3, I mean, honestly, everyone, because at this point, they're not familiar with what telling frames are, you really do want to provide them with an outline and have the topic in the middle. So when you're sending out the DLM, if you decide to use a telling frame, make sure that it looks something like this, where it has this topic in the middle. Additionally, what you could even do is you could add circles for where they're going to put their answers. Because some students might appreciate that additional structure. And so that would look something like this. Okay, so maybe you're going to have the circles already there for them to write in. And that gives them a little bit of a clearer expectation too, because it's like, okay, my teacher wants me to come up with 6 foods. Okay, so for primary students, it might be great to make it very, very structured. The topic is already in the middle in a box, and then you have the circles all around. That's another important point, actually. I should have mentioned this earlier. You want to make sure that the topic is in a square in the middle or a rectangle, and that the things surrounding the topic are in circles or ovals so that they're in different shapes. Okay. So some other primary examples you could do, so content area, vocabulary, science, you could do types of animals, social, you could do family members, or maybe that would even be part of Nepali or English class, being able to name all the different types of family members. Also, if you're talking about a character in a book or in a movie, so for example, like if they watched, I don't know, what's a movie? Cinderella. It's just a princess movie. And then they had to write things about her around it. So maybe they have to read a story and then create a telling frame about the main character. That's a really great activity, especially if you connect it to a small writing assignment. Okay. So for secondary examples, you can have a little more demand on students. And so the overarching goal of using graphic organizers, or one of them, is to help students organize their thoughts, especially when they're writing. Teaching writing is really, really hard. Teaching students to be good, clear, organized writers, and using brain frames can be very, very helpful for helping our students become stronger writers. So I think this point really sums it up. When we give students a writing assignment, we want them to have the tools to get started and organize their thoughts. Many students are totally overwhelmed when they receive a writing assignment. Write an essay about this, write 3 paragraphs about this, and they just kind of freak out and get stressed. So brain frames are a really great tool for helping students. However, we have to explicitly, clearly teach them how to use them in order to support their writing. So the example I chose is from Class 8 Social. And so in Class 8 Social, there are all these pages about the different provinces. And so maybe what your assignment is would look like this. Read page 14 and write a paragraph describing the Karnali province. Your paragraph, spelled that wrong, should be 7 to 10 sentences and include the most important details from the text. I'm gonna fix that because that was annoying. Okay. So the assignment is write a paragraph describing the Karnali province. Okay, so they're going to read in their textbook and then they're going to write a paragraph. We know that the paragraph needs to be 7 to 10 sentences. That's a very clear expectation. And also include the most important details. So as a teacher, when you're assessing this writing, you're saying, okay, were they able to follow directions? Did they write a paragraph describing the Karnali province, and did they choose the most important details? Now, to give some guidance to students, we're going to have them first create a telling frame. And so what they're going to do is they're going to go read in their textbook about the Karnali province. And you can actually see there's lots of nice little graphics on this page that highlight important information, which is great. That's going to be very helpful for our students as they're trying to access information. And then they'll create the telling frame. So you say, okay, the Karnali province, I saw that Rara Lake is there, which is the biggest lake. Okay, what else should I put in there? Okay, let's see. Do I need to list every single province that it borders? I don't think so, but it does border China, and so that's kind of interesting. Maybe I'll include that. Okay, and so as the students read that page in their textbook, they'll fill out this telling frame and decide, okay, these are all the things that I want to include. So now the students have already begun organizing the information. Now, when they have to go to write their paragraph, it's going to be much less overwhelming. They don't have to look at the book. They can just look at their telling frame that they wrote. The Karnali province borders China. The Karnali province has Rabra Lake, which is the biggest lake in Nepal, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So as a teacher, not only are you able to assess, do they know facts about the Karnali province, you're also able to assess how were they able to read and choose important details and organize their thoughts, which is a really, really important skill for our students to have. Okay. That's it for presentations on telling frames. Basically, just talking about a topic, making sure that it's connected to an assignment, that it's valuable for students, that that we want them revisiting it, and making it feel like their ideas are valuable and that doing this telling frame serves a purpose. Okay, so the next presentation, we're going to look at sequencing frames. Sequencing frames look like this with the boxes and the arrows. And that's when we're talking about putting events in order. So you can look for that presentation coming soon. Have a great day. Bye.